So how did you get sucked into all of this, Ivor?
Mark has arrived.
Let's
well-
pause for a second because Mark's going to end up interrupting us just as we're starting. So let's
Okay.
trying to.
Well, this is Howard Walensky for Active Surveillance Patients International, ASPI, and we have a very special guest today, Ifor Thomas, a poet from Wales originally, who is very unusual. He may be the poet laureate of prostate cancer. He wrote there are many prostate memoirs where men are telling their sad stories of what happened to them. There are many books by doctors telling us what they're going to do to us. But Ifor, I think, is unique because he has the poet's vision, and they say poets can tell the future. We'll see. We're going to ask a lot about the past.
I'm not sure about that.
And no, you'll be great. And but let me start off and ask you a couple of things. I know what a slam poet
Yes, please do.
is.
Please do. I'd just like to say I'm very pleased to be here, and it's great to meet you, you three stalwarts of the prostate scene.
We're the three musketeers of active surveillance, I guess.
Well, there are four of them originally.
Well, that's a long story. We're not going to.
Yeah, we'll skip that one.
We're going to we're not going to get into politics, but I know what a slam poet is. I used to work with one, and that's sort of like rap, and they have wars. But what's a performance poet? Are you dressed? Do you wear clothing?
Well, I mean, it's a pretty broad category we're looking at here. Generally speaking, it's a poet who essentially believes that poetry should be spoken first and perhaps read afterwards. The delivery is important. I worked with a number of performance poets in Cardiff, in Wales, and props were quite important. I would use a chainsaw on stage. I'd be wrapped in cling film. My friend would have a rubber chicken. The idea was to Peter Finch. He's quite a celebrated poet. The idea would be to, I mean, it was Dylan Thomas, really, another Welshman, who sort of became something of a performance poet. Although, I mean, the Greeks believed that poetry should be spoken first and perhaps just spoken. But it went through a pretty dull period when, if you went to see a poet, you could perhaps view it as a time to have a nap and turn off. But we believe that poets should project, speak clearly, often without the text, and perhaps use props to make a point or to provide something else for the audience to think about.
So is this something you teach yourself, or is there a famous school of performance?
There's no school of performance poetry. I mean, everybody comes to it differently. I mean, there were a group of us, so we sort of sparked off each other. But I don't see poets doing what we did then now. The use of props seems to have gone away a bit, and perhaps that's good. If you look at the Forward Prize, which is the preeminent prize for poetry, which has always been written poetry, this year they gave a prize for performed poetry. And have a look at it. Search the Forward Prize, spoken word poet, and it's an extraordinary poem. But he has no props.
Props to him, as we say here. But the only props I think of are prop comedians. Did they ruin it for the prop poets?
Well, the lines blur. I mean, poets want to be musicians, they want to be actors, they want to be clowns. They often want to be anything other than a poet. But my poetry career has gone through the performance stage. I mean, the book we're thinking about today is not a performance poet's work, really. It's
I
more
would,
reflective.
well, you're going to be talking about a book of poetry that largely deals with your adventure with prostate cancer. I think a chainsaw could have worked for you. What do you think?
Yeah. Howard Kinniston was my surgeon, and that was before robotics. I think even he couldn't have manipulated a chainsaw successfully for that one.
Well, okay, we've established that there's no school for performance poets. Is there a living to be made, or is this more of a side?
No, absolutely not. There's no living to be made from poetry unless you're pretty exceptional. The poet laureate in Britain is Simon Armitage. He manages to get by quite nicely on it, but very few poets can actually make a decent living.
Well,
Actually, being a poet.
if I can maybe overstep my bounds, and maybe Bill and Mark would allow me to dub you the poet laureate of prostate cancer. Would you accept that honor?
Yes. Yeah. Well, the poet I
we've-
most admired was an American, Robert Lowell. I thought his poetry was brilliant, and he was by no stretch of the imagination a performance poet.
But did he have prostate cancer?
No, not to my knowledge.
So we
He
would
didn't
give
live
it
to a
to
ripe
you.
old age.
You're at least the best living prostate poet. But
Yeah, I'll take the accolade, Howard. I'll take the accolade.
so what do you do to support your poetry?
I'm an architect
Still.
and a health architect, actually, although that part of my life is over now. But I worked in health architecture for most of my career, designing hospitals and theaters and burns units.
Operating theaters for the American.
Operating theaters, absolutely.
Yeah, interesting. So I'm sure
So it was nice to be on the receiving end of something that I'd seen from the other side as a patient.
I read your poems. It sounded like the facility where you were treated was not exactly brand spanking new. It sounded like a big cancer ward and
there's a poem there which refers to a very old hospital. I lived for many years, 30 years in Cardiff, which is the capital of Wales, and that's where I worked. And the estate, the hospital estate in Wales and indeed Britain, has been gradually deteriorating. And my son was treated in a dilapidated hospital, which I sort of refer to obliquely. But I actually, my procedure was carried out in a very good hospital, which is the University Hospital of Wales, Cardiff, by, as I said before, one of the preeminent surgeons in prostate cancer.
So, okay. So how old are you now, and how old?
74. I'm 74 now.
Oh, you're a young fellow. Okay.
How old are you, Howard?
I'm very much your senior, and I expect to be treated with respect. I'm 76.
Oh, you're only sneaking ahead. You're only sneaking ahead.
But I have to tell you, I feel 16 going on 17. So.
Oh, don't. I'm the same.
Not in all ways, but in many ways. Okay. But
yeah.
So, in what year were you diagnosed?
I was diagnosed in 2005 when I joined the.
That was the year your book of poetry was published too, I think.
Was it 206, 205, somewhere around there? Where are we?
Well, I saw 205 in the book.
Well, it must have been. I must have been diagnosed 204 then, I suppose.
Well, I hate to question a guest, but
Oh yes, no, you're right. This was published in 2005, so I must have been diagnosed a year, or perhaps 2 years before.
well, it was interesting. There were cookie crumbs in the book that set the year, because you mentioned, I think more than once, Timothy McVeigh,
Yes,
the American terrorist. I don't know
yes.
why he would have been on your mind unless he was about to be executed. Maybe you were comparing him to yourself, both getting strapped up.
Well, yeah. McVeigh has always intrigued me. I mean, there was he getting his lethal injection in on a gurney. I was intrigued by the man and his life being taken away when I was trying to save mine, I suppose.
Well, I think
So
there might have been sort of a parallel irony there, because his execution was medicalized.
yes,
They had
yes,
the accoutrements of
yeah,
your surgery,
yeah.
transportation.
Yeah, indeed. And the makeup of the lethal injection was quite interesting with curare, and I can't remember now, but I was quite interested in the sort of technicalities of killing somebody and what
Well,
actually
I hope you
happened.
weren't contemplating applying those. It was just a morbid
Never,
curiosity.
never. No. Uh,
Okay, so we think you got that. Well, you mentioned De Niro in the book,
yes,
and
yes. De
Robert De
Niro was,
Niro, he was treated here in Chicago by a prostate whisperer at Northwestern University, where I taught, by the way, but I didn't do
oh, really?
surgery.
Really?
I didn't
Yeah,
do
really?
surgery. Yeah.
Yeah.
I taught there for about 10 years in the School of Journalism, graduate school.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Leading people to unfortunate careers where they will never make any money. So
Oh, well, it's poetry again.
it's a form of poetry. It's just not poetic very often. There's some poets in those ranks.
Oh, hats off to journalists. Hats off to journalists.
Well, I've been one for more than 50 years.
You know, a poet will take ages to write 3 lines, whereas a journalist can knock you out 1,000 words in half an hour.
You got that right, brother.
Yeah.
But so now De Niro, I think you watched De Niro on TV and you mentioned him. And I think he had surgery in 2001.
Did
So
he?
yeah, I'm pretty, we don't have to hold each other to these years because, as you know, you have poetic license, so we can do whatever we want.
I can say what I like.
Yeah, at any rate, but the point is you got diagnosed. And in
Yeah,
fact,
I joined the survey. There was a nationwide survey run by Jenny and
Freddie Hamdi.
Freddie,
Yeah,
Jenny
well,
and
we should explain who they are. Freddie Hamdi, and I met him in 2017 at a major medical meeting where I was the first patient they had invited to speak. And they forgot me on the stage, and I wrote about that. They gave me a gift in an unfortunate second or third career becoming an advocate because the optics were all wrong. But he was sitting next to me, and that's how I met him. But he and Jenny Donovan were the lead principal researchers on what's called a PROTECT trial with a capital T on the end and a capital.
yeah. I'm well familiar.
So well, but the people listening may not be, but the
Yes, of course, yeah.
the SB group is going to be giving an award to to the PROTECT team. And
Oh, brilliant.
And then
Well deserved.
We think so too. I mean, because of people like you, you might not have gone on active surveillance, what we call active surveillance, but they needed you and people like you to prove the safety of active surveillance. And in the end, it turned out that going on active surveillance was just as safe as having surgery or radiation. And which led people like me to say, well, what do I need with surgery or radiation if it all comes out the same in the end?
Absolutely.
So as we would say to the military here, thank you for your service, Ivor. But tell us how you got into the study. You said there was a survey. Are you saying they sent out?
Yeah, the survey. So it occurred in some major cities throughout Britain, Newcastle, Bristol, and where I lived, Cardiff. And men were selected asked to volunteer for this trial, which I did. My PSA was quite high. That resulted in me having a biopsy, and the biopsy identified, I think it says in the book somewhere, I can't remember now, 7 or 8 cancerous sites.
You realize that, and again, don't take this personally, but I believe you were a Gleason 7.
Yes.
But you don't know, and we don't know if you were a 3+4 or a 4+3. But
I don't even know the significance of what you're saying there.
Well, yeah, well, some of the people listening will, because
Yes.
many of those people are on active surveillance and they're being watched. And they could be watched for many years. And there's a big difference between a 3+4 and a 4+3. 3+4 definitely you could go on active surveillance, although in the United States, only about 25% of them do today. Although in the beloved state of Michigan, where I also used to live, it's 45% opt to go on surveillance. So,
Really?
things have changed a lot since your
Yes.
days.
Yes.
But you wrote a poem called, which I love the title because you really nailed it. You were talking about the choices, and the title was Cut, Keep, or Burn. Cut,
People
keep, or
cook. We needed the alliteration there, Howard.
Oh,
Cut, keep, or cook, I think it was.
sorry. Yeah, I misspoke.
We're going to cook it, we're going to cut it, or you're going to keep it.
Well, spoken as a performance poet.
Yeah.
You could, I could see you acting that out.
Yes.
But so, yeah, that's a brilliant title. I like the alliteration, although I screwed it up, and you'll never forgive me.
No, you're forgiven.
But what actually happened with you? Were you were randomized and put into?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, or the trial, you were randomized. I was identified for I think radiotherapy, but I saw radiotherapy then, perhaps it's changed a lot now, as being something of a black art. I didn't think that the evidence at that time demonstrated a great success rate. So I sort of opted out effectively of the trial then and opted for a radical prostatectomy.
Were you, wait a minute, so you left the trial or were you able to stay?
Well, no, they kept me on board, and everything followed as if I'd been randomly selected to have surgery. So I suppose the stats were sort of tilted a bit to allow me to proceed in the project, in the study, but make my own choice as to
I see.
what treatment I preferred.
So how did that go and how has it gone long term? Did you have any side effects as a result of, and we're big boys,
Well,
and
you
you
know,
can
there's sort
tell
of.
us.
Oh yeah. I'm completely frank about everything. I mean, as Howard Kinniston did his ward round the night before, he came up to my bed and he said, "You'll never have an erection again without Viagra." And I thought, Christ, that's a bit of a shock. Um, uh, but I proceeded, and Viagra does do the, or Cialis or similar, does do the trick. But now I'm getting to 74. That's becoming a little bit more difficult. But I don't know the counterfactual. I mean, I don't know how well
Well,
74-year-olds manage anyway.
well, the
So
number as you get older, the numbers get worse and worse, and a lot of the doctors. Actually, we're going to be doing a program on this in a couple of weeks. Maybe you want to join us. We're going to have
love to.
I'll tell you, we'll put you on our list.
Yes.
Is the poet laureate, um, and we're going to
Oh,
have a urologist who's sort of an expert in this area, and he he says, the older you are, the worse it gets, and one of the problems is a lot of these doctors don't evaluate men in terms of their sexual status before the
yes.
surgery. So there's a tendency, especially for guys who've had surgery, to blame the situation not on their age, which is sort of a natural thing, but to
Yes.
blame it on the surgery. So, but
Yes.
it's and remind me, how old were you when he was telling you this?
In 2005, which, no, 2004, I was 54, 55. Johnny Ramone died of prostate cancer when he was 55.
So, do you
Uh,
identify with Joey Ramone?
I was identified with Johnny Ramone. I didn't want to go his way. I did like him.
Well, Frank Zappa too. A lot, a lot of poets. Elton John. The list is long. But
Oh, really?
you could have, and I have to tell you, even back then, I don't know if you realize this, but many Gleason 7 men were going on active surveillance even then.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you're a 4+3, which is a little bit more dire a situation.
Yeah.
But overall, were you satisfied? Well, wrong verb. Were you okay with having this experience? Do you feel that it saved your
Oh,
life?
absolutely. I mean, you only get one shot. You never quite know what would have happened otherwise. All I know is that I'm not dead. I run a dozen marathons every year. I'm pretty fit, and I got a book out of it. So pretty good result.
Well, let me ask you, what led you to write the book of poetry on this? And and I have to tell you that Doctors Donovan and Hamdi, they were very touched by the fact that we were giving them this award. They
Yeah,
said
they're
that
great people.
that it's very unusual, for doctors like them to get this kind of feedback from the patients that they helped. And then they
Yeah,
mentioned you.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't know that it is poetry. I don't know if it's a song to prostate surgery, but why,
Yes.
I mean, it's gritty, it's real. Um,
And
you know,
I was a bit sort of resentful that it wasn't all milk and honey. I say, heads you win, tails I lose. I felt I was on the end of a pretty shitty stick here. So, I look back now, and as I said, you just carry on your life, don't you? And you make the best of it. And my life's been pretty good since. And perhaps I could have died. Perhaps I needn't have had the surgery. But it doesn't really pay to spend too much time reflecting on decisions made, I think.
Well, as the racetrack poets would say, woulda, coulda, shoulda. So
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
what it
But
is.
you know, the genetic point is one to bear in mind, isn't it? My son, if my son has is diagnosed with prostate cancer, what is the advice I give him? And now, talking to you, gentlemen, I think I might be a bit more circumspect about the advice I would give him.
Well, we hope so. I mean, we're not against treatment if you need it, and the fact that you got diagnosed at 54 put you in maybe a slightly higher risk, or at least a risk for genetic issues. For some reason, in Europe, they're not as they don't emphasize the genetic component of this as much as they do in the U.S.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and so I wondered, did your father or grandfather have prostate cancer?
No, I was just going to say that. I mean, my father was never diagnosed with prostate cancer, but I mean, he had huge urinary problem. I mean, died of Parkinson's when he was 75. But the preceding years were plagued by, he was up all the time. You know, he couldn't go out of the door without planning where the toilets were. So, you know, I imagine he had, at the very least, an enlarged prostate, and perhaps he did have prostate cancer. I don't know.
It's important to emphasize that that's a separate issue. The British press can't seem to get it straight. But you know, you don't have to look very far to find an article in Britain talking about the symptoms of prostate cancer, which there really are no symptoms. You know, they bring up all these lower urinary tract issues, like frequent urination, and most of those things have to do with BPH. Now, in your poems, you talk about seeing a Chinese herbal doctor, Dr. Zhang.
Yes, yes.
Was that a what we call a Hail Mary? Were you?
Yes. Well, I told you about you know, the thoughts about erectile dysfunction. So I just wondered whether the Chinese guy would have some magic potion here, which would
I guarantee you they do.
ensure full vigor.
Well, you could probably buy it, and you shouldn't. I know that they sell them illegally in Chinatown and Chicago, but
All
no,
right.
you can buy like rhinoceros horn, things like that.
I wouldn't be going there. No.
So it sounds like that's not your thing. Now, you mentioned twice, at least in the book, Sister Vivian, and I have no idea.
No, there's no. I mean, I've sort of got the words of Leonard Cohen in my mind. He sort of talks about the Sisters of Mercy, doesn't he? In some very evocative songs, but a song. But I mean, there's no mystery really. Sister Vivienne was she was new to the trial. She came in to assist on the trial, so she joined in the diagnosis of patients. She was very caring. I mean, she was the first person I saw when I came round from the surgery. Although having said that, I did opt for an epidural, so I wasn't actually unconscious, but she was there by the bed when I got back to the ward.
She was your Sister of Mercy, I guess.
She was my Sister of Mercy, perhaps.
I wasn't sure in the context, if you were, especially the first mention, if you were talking about an actual sister of yours, but she
wasn't an actual sister. And she was quite brusque as well, which I think I captured in in one of the poems. You know, she didn't have a lot of spare sympathy, which I prefer, really. I prefer people to be a little bit on the how should we say, an unfiltered side. So I quite like that aspect of her.
Now, you wrote another book called The Old Surgery. Did that have anything?
No, you've got the wrong end of the stick there, Howard. That's the publisher's address. The Parthian, the publisher, published out of The Old Surgery. I mean, I have written other books.
Yeah, and I thought it was in a list of books there.
Yeah.
I missed
I'll
it.
send you
Oh, I see. The Old Surgery. I got it.
Yeah. That's
So-
where the publisher as publisher's address.
I got it.
I've got a biog somewhere, a literary biog. I'll push that through to you after.
Have you, since you finished up and you published the book, have you ever written about your prostate again?
No,
You were done.
done with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a famous writer called Lowell who wrote Under the Volcano, and he was a drunk and a reprobate. But the job of the writer is to keep writing, and whatever happens to you, nothing bad can happen to a writer because it's all grist to the writer's mill.
Yeah.
So it's that sort of approach, really. It was good material, and I quite enjoyed writing the book, and it did get quite a good reception.
Yeah. Did you reach the prostate cancer audience? Was there any?
Well, yeah, I went to perform the poems to the group. They had a big meeting. This is going back many years now. So clearly, after I'd had the procedure and after I'd written the book, Freddie asked me to go and read the book to the research group and patients. And Howard Kinison, the surgeon, was there. And I remarked on the picture on the front is my stomach with the staples in from the surgery.
I wondered about that. Yeah.
And I remarked at how untidy the surgery was. And he said that was his registrar. His registrar was useless, and he did the cutting open and the stitching up. And he'd Mr. Brown, I think his name was. I can't remember, but it was a bit of a joke on that occasion.
Well, you look sort of like an uneven American football.
Yes, it's that. Somebody said yes.
Uneven. So we've been doing a bunch of talking. I don't know if Bill or Mark, if Mark's still awake.
He's moved outside, so it's good.
Oh, so I don't know if they have some questions, but I'd like to, with your permission, have you recite a couple of the poems.
Yeah, you stipulate what you'd like, Howard, and I'll give it a go.
I
would love to hear some of your poems too. And you, like I was diagnosed in 2005, and so I've been on active surveillance for 20 years, and that was quite a challenge back then because I didn't even know anybody that was on active surveillance at that time. Well, I knew one person, but I really enjoy your lighthearted manner. This prostate cancer, you're a great testament.
Yeah, well,
for prostate. I mean, you've, and this is one of our things about active surveillance. We want you to thrive on active surveillance in prostate cancer. We want you to have a full life on prostate cancer, and you've done that even with treatment. You've done that, to your credit.
You're still part of our brotherhood, Ivor. You're still part of it.
Some
honorary member now.
Well, but you're the poet laureate.
Qualify.
You're the poet laureate for. But you're.
I turned down my watchful waiting, as it was then called.
Yeah, well, I wanted to ask you if you did if when you read, you could do a kind of a more performance-oriented thing that you might have done for Hamdi and his group way back then. I don't know whether you're able to do that now, but rather than just
pull out your chainsaw, please.
Yeah.
Well, as I said to you earlier, Howard, this
I'm
book
just
is
kidding.
not of the performance type, so it's not my old performance stuff.
Yeah, I
which was
gotcha. I was just
so
kidding.
it's a bit more reflective, I think.
I wrote you a note and then didn't write down I suggested about 3 poems.
Yeah, you did. I was just going to look at my phone to see, but I think you suggested.
I suggested, this is from memory, prognosis, the cut, keep, or hook.
Yes.
Maybe the prognosis. I can't remember. I'd have to look in.
Rust, I think, was suggested.
Yeah, rust is very short, but I think anybody who's had a biopsy could identify with that. You know.
Yes. Yes. And one of the reviewers, when he was reviewing this book, he said it was quite good because the machinery of life was sort of closing down. The machinery was broken. The machinery was rusty. And so the semen stained with blood, which made it rusty, was a sort of metaphor for the machinery of the body being broken.
By the way, I should ask, your title is Body Beautiful.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Is that a takeoff on Walt Whitman maybe, or?
Well, it's very kind of you to say that, but I have to say, I mean, it just struck me. I mean, after surgery, you've got a cannula on each wrist. You've got staples down your stomach. You've got a wound drain, which is tube coming out of the wound. And I thought I was sort of adorned like a sort of South American warrior or something, with sort of body piercings and ferocious things through my nose or something, So I thought I looked sort of like a warrior with all these medical accoutrements attached to me, and I thought that's quite beautiful. So I thought I'd achieved a sort of beautiful body post-surgery by all these medical attachments.
So who are you identifying with, the Aztecs or the?
Yeah, well, you choose, Howard. You choose. You choose. I mean, it's a hodgepodge I've got in my mind. Probably no real bearing on reality.
Could have been the Incas. I mean, they all believed in blood
somebody
sacrifice.
Somebody ferocious who would have killed lots of Spaniards.
Seemed like a good idea at the time. Actually, the picture behind me is.
Yes, I was intrigued by that.
These are jail cells carved out of brain coral in Veracruz, Mexico.
Really?
Spaniards came into the New World in Veracruz, the True Cross, and they left through Veracruz. And what they did here was they extended the Inquisition there.
Yeah.
So people who were running from the Inquisition were put in these cells.
Yeah.
And so that's the story. I went there, and I'll tell you, it's pretty, a few weeks after we were there were like 60 people showed up dead on a sidewalk there. And nobody, I don't, at the time, nobody could figure it out because, it's not quite a safe place at times.
Yeah.
It almost reaches Chicago levels, but
I've only been to Chicago once. I had a dry martini at the top of the Sears Tower, and I had a very pleasant time there.
Well, you saw it as a tourist. There's a lot more going
Yes.
on.
Well, no, I was working actually. We had an American architect who was going to do some work in Britain, and we went out to check his work in America. So that was it. We went around a few buildings in America, but the Chicago local hospital, the public hospital,
Cook
it was
County?
like. Sorry, say it again.
Well, they built a new one, Cook County. It was
Yes, yes,
decrepit, and they built
yes.
a new one, and they named it after the Cook County commissioner. What else? You know,
Yeah, really.
politics. But
Yeah,
it was Stroger. I think it's called the Stroger Hospital.
yeah.
So,
Oh, but anyway, that was my Chicago visit, and I enjoyed it. But
I was in Chicago this morning.
oh, really?
Yeah,
Really?
just briefly. I had to run an errand up there.
Yeah, I first encountered Starbucks in Chicago, and I was so impressed. Less so now, I have to say.
Well, they're on every block. Sometimes there are two of them on a block.
Yeah, indeed,
And
indeed.
I don't
But
drink coffee myself. But you know,
Oh.
we got to give you one more piece of advice for your son. Is he?
yeah, go.
Does he? Okay, is he in his 50s?
No, he's early 40s.
Has he had a PSA test?
No.
You don't do that much in England. They're starting to introduce early detection, but since you have a family history, I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV, but if he was my son, not that my son would listen to me, by the way,
Yes.
I would suggest that he might get checked out. Now, he might not want to. My sons didn't want to know anything.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
you know, if you have a family history, if you lived in America, it's different with the National Health Service. If you lived in
Yes.
America, they would urge him in his 40s to get a PSA test. There's a new test that I just wrote something about over the weekend that's coming out of NHS. I'll send you an article about
Yeah,
it.
send me the link. I'd like to read that.
But at any rate, and then in the US, we have available free DNA testing. And there's certain things.
It's free in the US?
Yeah, well, it's part of a study, and they're building
Yes.
a database, but it costs about $300.
Yes.
And it's a medical grade test that looks at your genes. And so, are you a carrier of the BRCA1 or BRCA2 gene, for example? If you are, that would be a whole different show, and that's inherited.
Yeah.
One of my brothers and my sister and I all have an inherited cancer gene, but it's obviously not prostate.
Yes. Yes.
And so, I mean, if your son were here and he were my son, I would suggest that he get a PSA, unless he doesn't want to mess with it. I mean, you've been dancing between the raindrops so far. Maybe you didn't have it as bad as you thought you did.
Yeah, indeed.
But I'll send you a couple of things, and also Bill and I just did a program a couple of weeks ago with a guy that got diagnosed at age 35.
35.
Yeah, it was for other reasons, and they found it. I think his went away too, Bill. Do you remember? I'm not sure, but I think I'll send you a link. Is it live now, Bill?
Yeah, it's on the website.
Because I went looking for it because I wanted to send it to Gabe Canellis. But we'll send you a couple of things. Unless you
I appreciate it.
Unless you want to keep prostate in the back door, so to speak.
Knowledge is good. Knowledge is good, Howard. The more you know.
Okay. All right. So if, I can do, I don't know how you want to run this, Bill, if you want to cut some of it. I don't know if you want to run that interview, for example. Some of it was humorous. We tried to keep it light but informative.
Right. Well, a lot of this will be cut because we really got to, tighten it up.
So, okay, maybe I'll do another introduction, and Ivor will do 2 or 3 of the poems, and then we'll leave each other alone. How about that?
Okay.
I think that'd be good.
Okay, I'll do another introduction. So, okay, today we're talking with Ifor Thomas from Wales. He's the poet laureate of prostate cancer. We declared him that. And he's going to recite some of his poems. And very interesting, he was a participant in the PROTECT trial, which showed the safety of what they called active management, what we call active surveillance. So Ivor, take it away.
Okay, right. So this first poem that I'm going to read now is called New Questions. So it was at the beginning of the process when I didn't know anything about the prostate. I'd yet to become acquainted with it. So, New Questions. Sister Vivienne, researcher, shows me the medical illustration. It's as foreign as a map of Glasgow or Leeds. She tests my knowledge. I know all this, but not now. This isn't my city. I'm lost. She tells me how difficult diagnosis is, how imponderable treatment. There are forms to sign, questionnaires to complete, consents and blood to be given. Do I understand? Will I participate? We sit together alone in the disused hospital. This was once the A&E department. I came here with my children. Their cuts and broken bones were tended in a cubicle such as this. I remember a nurse. His name was Mal. I puzzle over this theme park, bladder like a boating lake, the sweeping cycle path of the urethra, the country lane of the rectum, the racetrack of the penis, the car park of the prostate. Like all car parks, it's difficult to get to. For a moment, I'm glad that these things are foreign to me, that I'm not an expert, that all this is unexplored territory. When I am chemo whacked and zapped by X-rays, I will know these byways like the IV stabbed back of my hand, will have conducted guided tours, allowed visitors memorabilia and takeaways. Then my grey skinned face will nod the answers to her questions. That's
very good. What's next on the agenda?
Let's skip to the choices. Where have we got? Oh, rust. Rust. In October, the color of my sperm changed to rust. In tune with the changing season, but frightening the shit out of me and Jill as we lay post-coital, staring at the ceiling. This is the randomized trial comes up with one of 3 options, which I've labeled cut, surgery, keep, watchful waiting, as we used to call it, or cook, which is radiotherapy. Cut, keep, or cook. They don't know what to do about prostate cancer, so they leave it to you to come up with the answer. There's a computer or form book that will randomly choose whether to cut, keep, or cook. Heads, they win. Tails, you lose. So then we go to, oh, let's go to my funeral now, shall we? Oh, this is Body Beautiful, the title poem. And as I explained earlier, it's a sort of reference to appearing like an ancient, glorious warrior dressed in the accoutrements of battle. Body Beautiful. I wear my jewelry, a cannula on the back of each wrist, my bodily adornments, wound drains, catheter, my piercings, a suture through the foreskin, staples, my tattoo, a 6-inch scar. In urology, I'm dressed to kill. So now we'll move to the follow-up. Poets always shuffle through the book. This is called My Funeral. The post-surgery, they follow up how you're doing, and they take your PSA again. And then, as in this case, they phone the result through to you. My funeral. I'm not so chipper now, back here for the post-op 3-month checkup with the grey-haired men clutching their wives and papier-mâché urine bottles. The feedback from the GP's blood test is not good. Sister Vivienne is putting a brave face on it. Only this morning, Robert De Niro was thanking the world for the success of his treatment. Bob's kept me company. Now he's out of the woods, and I'm in Suite 18 contemplating a PSA level that is too high and rides on trolleys down corridors. I'm already planning my funeral. A pair of black stallions with plaited manes will pull me cray-like up Thornhill. The rattle of those big wheels will draw the crowds. Children will see their faces reflected in the lacquer of my casket. There will be recordings of Bob Cobbing and clips of De Niro saying, "You talking to me?" At the moment of cremation, a butterfly will appear from nowhere. The congregation will be stunned into silence. Someone will whisper, "His nightmare is over now." Everyone will hear and nod. Yes, it could have been me, but thank God it's him. 2 days later, the phone rings, been a mistake, samples mixed up. I sigh, get onto the creme, tell them to cancel the arrangements, or at least put them on hold. Thank you very much, America.
Well, thank you,
Beautiful,
Wales.
beautiful. Love
Yes.
it. I got grandkid to take care of, but that was outstanding. Really enjoyed meeting.
Yeah, my grandchildren are hovering in the background as well. So,
Well, listen, Ivor, thank you.
I think we got what we need.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're going to have to
brilliant.
figure out how we're going to apply it. And Ivor, I was able to get the book through Amazon. Is it available?
I'm not sure. I mean, no, I don't think it is on Amazon. I mean, I can send copies to people if you'd like me to send some.
Well,
I can arrange.
yeah, I was able to buy it on Amazon, but
Oh, right.
but I think, well, we'll worry about that later. Bill, you and
Yeah. Let me know. I've got some copies at home.
You could stop the recording.
Okay, I certainly